These sets of provisions rather were meant to significantly increase the government's demand for green products and services while simultaneously empowering our local market. So we have our DTI as a very, very important partner in doing this. Together, we are taking meaningful steps toward a more sustainable future. If you want to learn more about the new Government Procurement Act, I also want to share that we have launched a microsite last August, specifically on the new law. So you can view everything about the new law in ngpa.gppb.gov.ph. Or if you want to be able to put in your comments and suggestions, you would have to register. So far, we have received at least 200 proposals and comments online, making our NGPA microsite truly a very effective consultation mechanism for the crafting of the IRR. Aside from technical sessions on the new Government Procurement Act starting this afternoon and for the rest of the summit days, procuring entities, economic operators, and civil society organizations will have the opportunity to participate in informative sessions covering the GBPB-TSO's reforms, including the Regina system, PhilJobs e-marketplace, and insights from our pilot agencies involved in our sustainable and consumption and production initiative. Allow me to share that last November of 2023, the board approved the pilot implementation of 8 broad product categories covering several pilot agencies. So here, the pilot agencies will be implementing, including the GPPBTSO, green design, green sustainable criteria in their procurement projects. And often we're asked how to do this. So we're going to take advantage of the technical sessions to have the pilot agency share with you what went through in their design process, in their preparation process, in their planning process that allowed them to include sustainability and green design and criteria in their procurement projects. Our goal is really to equip all participants with the necessary knowledge and skills for the effective application of the law in the coming years. Our 2024 Procurement Summit also takes pride for showcasing various government innovations, such as the GPPB Procurement Observers Portal, which allows observers to monitor the procurement process in an online platform. We launched this last August of this year, but prior to that, we really had very, very good consultation and simulation exercises with various CSOs beginning May and June of this year. We are already in the process of populating the platform with CSOs. So if you are a CSO or know of CSOs that are interested in really actively observing public procurement, I invite you to register, because once we have the IRR implemented, we will be requiring CSOs to participate through the Observers Portal. This is what I call the Tinder of public procurement. If you're familiar with Tinder, it's a date matching platform. So what we often hear is that CSOs complaining that they are not invited. On the other hand, we have procuring entities saying, but CSOs do not actually join. So to be able to provide them with an exclusive online platform to match procuring entities with the CSOs that may participate in their public procurement processes, we have created the GPPB Observers Portal. And this was made possible through the help of the World Bank. We have been working on this with the World Bank for quite some time now. And that's why we're very happy that even before the effectivity of the new law, we were able to actually launch this. And so again, I really, really earnestly encourage all of you to really spread the word and have those register online through our GPPB Observers Portal. You can readily see this on our website at www.gppb.gov.ph. Among the other reform initiatives we have implemented over the years is the PBD Builder, developed in partnership with the USAID, which helps procuring entities prepare Philippine bidding documents for goods and infrastructure projects with ease. So it's an online web-based platform that would generate Philippine bidding documents for our procuring entities. It minimizes the error because all you have to do is just input the data, of course, correctly one time, and it will populate the whole bidding documents. It also has tooltips that would advise you if you are doing multi-year procurement, if you would be allowing subcontracting, if you wish to do framework agreement or procurement by lots, and so on. And of course, we will also be talking about the DBM's Integrated Financial Management Information System, developed to simplify and improve all public financial management processes and related information in the country. These are only among the innovative government solutions waiting to meet you at our office lobby together with the GPPB-TSO Procurement Clinic, where you can raise your procurement queries and concerns between 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Should you not be able to be lucky enough to have a slot in our procurement clinic, we also launched this August 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 chatbot. 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏 has been the mascot of the GPPB and the GPPBTS for several years now since the pandemic. And we relaunched the chatbot last August because this time we have incorporated generative AI. What does it mean? 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 will be answering rather your questions, not based on predetermined set of answers. It will be using generative AI in processing data sets that we have included in our system to be able to provide you with guided answers to your question. And as robust your questions become and as more interesting your question become, 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃 becomes also more intelligent in answering your questions. It is also very inclusive because I'm proud to say that you can actually ask 𝗟𝗏 in many dialects. We've tried Ilocano, Bicolano, Pangasinense, Visayan, and other foreign languages as well. So if you have the time, do try out, go to our website, you'll see our mascot on the lower right-hand corner, that's 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃, and you can ask question. You'll be asked for your email and your name because we will be emailing you back the conversation for guidance. And sometimes I always say this, if you happen to be lonely at night, you may try to ask 𝗟𝗏 some questions and I'm very certain he would answer you right away. Okay, so do try that out. Finally, I invite you to show your support and pride for our local MSMEs by visiting our GPPB-TSO Sustaindahan. Sustaindahan is a blend of two words, sustain, reflecting sustainability, and dahan from the Filipino word tindahan, meaning local store. The term embodies the essence of promoting sustainability through locally produced eco-friendly products. At the Sustaindahan, we showcase the work of local MSMEs that are contributing to sustainable development by offering products that are not only environmentally responsible, but also support local economies. So to our valued procuring entities, I invite you all to take advantage of our 3-day activities, as this will immensely help you in your procurement requirements for 2024 and beyond, and planning preparations, of course, for 2025 and 2026 and beyond. To our valued economic operators, make sure, or suppliers, make sure to regularly update your records with PhilJEPs to join us in making meaningful green difference today. To our valued CSOs, I encourage you to register to our GPPB Procurement Observance Portal. This platform will empower you to actively participate in upcoming procurement activities and enhance your engagement in the procurement process. Once again, thank you so much for being here with us. Together, let us join hands and work collaboratively to bring our greening economy efforts to fruition. Muli, maraming salamat po at magandang umaga sa inyong lahat.
A round of applause for our very own GPPB-TSO Executive Director, Attorney Rowena Candice Ruby. Thank you very much, AD Ruiz, for your warm welcome and for setting the tone for what promises to be an insightful summit. Now it is my distinct honor to introduce our keynote speaker. Now our keynote speaker will be joining us virtually. With her unwavering commitment to transforming the procurement landscape in the Philippines, she has played a pivotal role in the recent passage of the new Government Procurement Act, which aims to promote transparency, efficiency, and inclusivity in public procurement processes. Her visionary leadership is essential as we delve into the theme of this summit. Today, She will share invaluable insights into the empowerment of local MSMEs and how strategic procurement practices can catalyze economic growth and advance social equity in our communities. Furthermore, her address will mark the official launch of the Sustaindahan and Innovation Showcase, reinforcing our commitment to sustainable practices and innovative solutions within the procurement sector. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming DBM Secretary and GPPB Chairperson, Secretary Amena Pangandaman.
To GPPB TSO Executive Director Attorney Rowena Candice Ruiz, to UN Women Philippines Representative Ms. Singrid Jan Sibog, to our colleagues from the DBM and other national agencies, a pleasant morning to all of you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. It is a great honor to join you today, although virtually, at the Fiscal Year 2024 Procurement Summit, an event that stands as a beacon of progress and transformation in public procurement. This year's theme, Leveraging Local MSMEs for an Inclusive and Sustainable Procurement, highlights the immense potential of micro, small, and medium enterprises as drivers of local innovation and our partners towards sustainable development. Hence, we must ensure that our procurement processes actively support and uplift our MSMEs, especially social enterprises and women-led businesses. By empowering MSMEs and strengthening their participation in public procurement, we are opening doors to a more equitable and resilient economy where every enterprise, regardless of size, can thrive and contribute to our shared prosperity. The new Government Procurement Act, which prioritizes inclusivity as well as transparency and efficiency through digitalization, is a powerful testament to this commitment. Signed into law last July, the NGPA is a reform we advocated to make the procurement system more modern, innovative, streamlined, and truly at par with global standards. I am very proud of this law as this was already an advocacy of mine since day one as Budget Secretary. And I would like to thank our President, Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr., and its principal authors, led by former Senator, now Education Secretary Sani Angara, for their unwavering support as we were able to pass this in less than 2 years. Under the NGPA, we will promote an inclusive procurement program where MSMEs, mainly micro-enterprises, social enterprises, and startups will be provided with equal opportunities in all procurement activities. In addition, the national government will also allot some 830 million pesos of the proposed fiscal year 2025 national budget for the MSME development program. This program aims to uplift our MSMEs so they can contribute to transforming the production sector by generating more quality jobs and producing competitive products. Ultimately, by empowering our local MSMEs, we not only strengthen local supply chains but also promote environmentally responsible practices, as MSMEs are uniquely positioned to offer innovative, sustainable solutions tailored to our local context. Their proximity to communities and agility in adapting to sustainable practices make them vital allies in our mission to create a greener, more responsible procurement system. On this note, I encourage everyone to actively participate and collaborate because together we can help unlock the potential of our local MSMEs. MSMEs are the backbone of our economy, so we truly hope to not only include but also uplift and encourage our MSMEs through our improved procurement processes. So join me as I officially open the Sustaindahan and the Innovation Showcase of this year's Procurement Summit. Let this signal a shared dedication to building a sustainable and inclusive procurement system, one that supports local MSMEs, foster inclusivity, and drive sustainability. I wish you all a productive and inspiring fiscal year 2024 Procurement Summit. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. Wabillahi taufiq walidaya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Welcome to the 2024 Procurement Summit, the first ever summit held at the GPPB TSO building. This year, we proudly spotlight MSMEs, recognizing their essential role in driving inclusive and sustainable procurement. Explore the MSME booths, engage with local entrepreneurs, and discover innovative, eco-friendly products. Let's work together to promote inclusivity and sustainability and unlock new opportunities for small businesses in public procurement. Welcome to GPPB TSO and welcome to 2024 Procurement Summit.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the remarkable BBM Secretary and GPPB Chairperson Secretary Amena Pangandaman. And of course, the official launch of our Sustaindahan and Innovations Showcase. Thank you very much, BBM Secretary, because your insights on the transformative role of the procurement in driving inclusivity and sustainability have set the perfect tone for the discussions ahead. So on that note, we warmly invite everyone to visit and experience our Sustaindahan and Innovation Showcase located in the building lobby and on the second floor of the GPPB TSO building. This showcase offers a great opportunity to explore and support the incredible products created by our local MSMEs. Let's show our commitment to inclusive and sustainable procurement by buying local products thoughtfully displayed for us throughout the summit, starting today until the final day. Your support goes a long way in empowering our MSMEs and promoting sustainable economic growth. So again, that's located in our building lobby and on the second floor of our GPPB TSO building. Now, we move on into our plenary session, which will dive deeper into the summit's theme, leveraging local MSMEs for inclusive and sustainable procurement. In this session, our esteemed resource speakers will explore strategies, challenges, and success stories around integrating MSMEs into public procurement, ensuring not just compliance, but also impact. The discussions will highlight how procurement can serve as a tool for empowering local enterprises, promoting sustainability, and fostering economic growth that benefits communities. To kick off our panel discussion, it is my pleasure to introduce our first panel resource speaker. She is a trailblazer in the field of women's economic empowerment and inclusive development. Our first panel resource speaker is the founding chairperson of the Philippine Women's Economic Network and a champion of advancing gender equality in business. Her extensive experience in both the private and public sectors provides her with a unique perspective on how local MSMEs, particularly women-led businesses, can play a key role in fostering inclusive and sustainable economic growth. Today, she will share her insights on empowering MSMEs and how procurement can be used as a strategic tool to drive both social and economic impact. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our first panel resource speaker, Ms. Aurora Guillotina Garcia.
Morning, everyone. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. Ay, mukhang inaantok pa tayo on a Monday morning. A little bit more energy. Magandang umaga sa inyong lahat. That sounds better. Anyway, I'm pleased to be here this morning. As mentioned, my name is 𝗣𝗿𝗃𝗃𝗃. I'm the founding chairperson and president of the Philippine Women's Economic Network, or PhilWEN, and the chairperson of the Governing Coalition for Women Empowerment. So I'd like to thank ED Tweng and the entire GPP board for inviting me to speak today. As I do, and I am personally I personally support the summit's theme of leveraging local MSMEs for inclusive and sustainable procurement. I believe that MSMEs have the potential to transform our economy and promote social equity, especially when women entrepreneurs are able to participate in government procurement. For obvious reasons, I will be speaking for the benefit and from the point of view of women MSMEs, which is our advocacy, as part of our advocacy for women economic empowerment. So I will share my insights on the current business environment and the potential impact of women-owned and women-led businesses in advancing inclusive procurement, examples of good business practices, as well as some recommendations for the private and the public sectors. If we move on to the next slide, according to the recently adopted definition of women-owned or women-led business to the DTI-led Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprise Development Council, I think we have a colleague from the DTI represented here this morning. We have adopted the International Finance Corporation definition of women-owned or women-led businesses. So women-owned businesses are businesses where at least 51% of the company is owned by a woman or women, while women-led businesses are those businesses where at least 20% is owned by a woman or women, and at least one woman acts as CEO or COO or vice president, and at least 30% of the board or directors where a board exists is composed of women. So for today's talk, I'll just simply refer to them as women MSMEs. Based on the 2018 data of Statista, a global data and business intelligence platform, pardon for the date of the data, but just to demonstrate where women MSMEs are, around 88% of women entrepreneurs are engaged in retail or wholesale, and at least 40% are engaged in arts and culture, materials for manufacturing, food processing, and agriculture. Thus, if the government, who has the capacity to leverage its significant market reach to influence and shape how businesses create and process products and services to the public, it can in turn influence public demand and create bid opportunities for women, including consumer awareness to achieve sustainable and inclusive procurement practices. This also means that our country can employ equitable and inclusive procurement policies to promote significant socio-economic change for women and their business. What is the impact of women entrepreneurs? According to the World Economic Forum reports on the global gender gap, there is a direct correlation between economic growth and gender equality. The McKinsey Global Institute estimates that by addressing the gender gap, women could add as much as $28 trillion or 26% of global GDP by 2025. In the Philippines, where approximately 59, or 2.5 million out of 4.2 million registered businesses are women MSMEs, based on DTI data, women's involvement in government procurement can lead to substantial economic benefits. Women's participation in government procurement could lead to scaling up their businesses, which means creating more jobs and helping local economies expand. Achieving SDG 5 or gender equality does not just benefit women, but also their families, communities, and the general public. Achieving gender equality is a key element to achieving other SDGs, such as eliminating poverty and hunger, and ensuring good health and education for all people, among others. SDG number 12's goal to ensure sustainable consumption and production patterns, particularly SDG target 12.7, promote public procurement practices that are sustainable can only be achieved if women participate likewise in procurement. So by including WMSMEs in government procurement, the government is assured that economic benefits are widely and justly distributed. As research shows, women often invest a high proportion of their income to their family and community. Sorry to say this, compared to their male counterparts, which leads to transformative improvement of families' well-being and enhancement of community development. So let me share some good practices in the private sector with respect to gender-responsive procurement. I'd like to mention We Connect International with the tagline Connecting Women with Opportunities, which is a global nonprofit organization that connects WMSMEs to qualified buyers around the world. Its network of 200 plus member companies, which include global names as Google, Moody's, Walmart, IBM, Ernst & Young, in 163 countries, completed 32,000 connections in 2023. This organization also assists women in addressing crucial barriers, such as access to markets and access to finance, and offer free expert-level training programs to WMSMEs. I've also actually seen local companies offer their products to global companies through We Connect. And as we speak, 𝗟𝗏, the organization I represent, is actually in discussions about potentially entering into memorandum of understanding with We Connect to benefit our local WMSMEs. I'd like also to share an example of a Philippine company, one of the 45 members of the Philippine Business Coalition Empowerment, which coalition promotes gender equality through gender-responsive policies. So in 2022, DDB Group Philippines, the first integrated marketing, communications, and services network, was named champion in the gender-responsive marketplace category of the 2022 Philippines Webs Awards. For, among others, embracing a gender lens throughout their supply chain through supplier diversity, gender-inclusive distribution, and gender-responsive marketing and advertising. So what can the private sector do? I'd like to propose some suggestions and recommendations. First, private sector could set targets and goals on the percentage of total purchases to be sourced from women MSMEs. By actively seeking out and engaging with women entrepreneurs, companies will diversify their supply chains and will help break some deeply systemic barriers that hinder women to participate in procurement. Second, establish partnerships with organizations that support women entrepreneurs to identify suppliers and for ease of connections with WMSMEs. Third, integrate gender-responsive criteria in supplier selection and accreditation. When evaluating potential suppliers, companies can include criteria that assess the supplier's commitment to gender-responsive policies, to promote gender diversity in the workforce, and any other initiatives that will promote women empowerment within their business. Integrating this criteria into the supplier selection process not only encourages suppliers to adopt more inclusive practices, but also helps create a competitive advantage to those who prioritize gender responsiveness. To encourage members of the coalition, 𝗣𝗍𝗰, to adopt inclusive and gender-responsive procurement policies, 𝗣𝗍𝗰 is currently in the process of enhancing GEARS, which stands for Gender Equality, Assessment, Results, and Strategies, developed through the support of the Investing in Women project of the Australian Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, which is an assessment tool that helps examine company strategies and provide an insightful assessment of their workplace gender equality policies. Can we show the slide, Rian, on GEARS? The tool consists of statistical data collection and targeted analysis in 12 focus areas. And our goal is to add gender and supply chains as another focus area. Implementing diversity in your supply chain is an effective strategy that explicitly seeks inclusion of women-owned and women-led businesses. Through this approach, we can strategically promote gender equality within the business by supporting potential women suppliers. And then anyways, that should be okay. So coming to my suggestions for the government sector. First, I'd like to commend the GBPP for its passage of this Government Procurement Act, which makes strategies towards gender-responsive policies mandated and prioritized. So if all the government agencies were to adopt such policies in their procurement activities, the participation of women MSMEs will expand. So I'd like to propose some recommendations for consideration. Importantly, public sector commitment to gender-responsive procurement practice can drive significant social change in the private sector too, as businesses seek to align with government standards. My first suggestion, of course, is the implementation of the provisions of the Magna Carta of Women, which provides that government should allocate 20% of all their procurement opportunities for goods and services to MSMEs. Though no specific targets can be set for women MSMEs, who comprise about 58% of MSMEs, they will nonetheless benefit. Ideally, of course, it would be preferred if a specific target is set for women-owned and women-led businesses. Second, incorporate gender-responsive criteria in bidding evaluation, as many women MSMEs are often small. They face challenges in competing with large companies for government contracts. To enable WMSMEs to participate in government procurement, criteria which can be incorporated in the evaluation of bids by larger companies as a commitment from the bidders to source a percentage of their own purchases from women MSMEs, and the presence of policies that promote gender equality in their organizations. This approach could help to level the playing field for smaller businesses and is aligned with the Magna Carta, enabling government spending to contribute to the economic empowerment of women. To further encourage women to participate in public procurement, the government can provide support and resources to encourage women to form consortia by themselves or with others, where they can pool their resources and share their expertise. Training programs on how to navigate the procurement process, access to network opportunities, and guidance on best practices for collaboration will be beneficial. Next, utilize the GAD budget of all government agencies and instrumentalities for procurement from WMSMEs. Just looking at the approved national budget of pesos 5.7068 billion. If only 1% of that budget, approximately 57.68 billion, if my math is correct, is used for purchases from WMSMEs, Can you imagine the impact that this will create to the woman, her family, and to the community where she belongs? Fourth, I'd like to suggest that we link government incentives to gender-responsive procurement practices. For example, the DTI, which is one of the bodies, government bodies, which grant incentives, may want to consider in its evaluation criteria a commitment to source from WMSMEs or implement gender diversity initiatives. So government can thus encourage businesses to give importance or give priority to gender equality in their operations, which amplifies the impact of government mechanisms. In closing, I call on all stakeholders, especially those present today, to take collective action to build a more equitable, inclusive society. By working together, we can transform our economy where women have equal opportunities to reach their full potential. Ensuring participation of women MSMEs in procurement is not just a matter of economic necessity. I believe it is a moral imperative. When she bids, we benefit. Thus, let us all empower women for inclusive procurement. I'm looking forward to the exchange during the panel and the rest of the summit activities. Thank you for listening and a pleasant good morning again to all of you.
Thank you very much. That was again our first panel resource speaker, 𝗟𝗲𝗃𝗲𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃𝗃 Garcia. Thank you, ma'am, for that insightful sharing on the importance of empowering MSMEs, particularly women-led enterprises, in building a more inclusive economy. Now, to continue our discussion, it is my honor to introduce our second panel resource speaker from the Department of Trade and Industry. Our resource speaker brings with him extensive expertise in governance. His work at DTI focuses on enhancing the business environment for MSMEs, driving innovation, and ensuring sustainable development through inclusive policies. In today's discussion, he will share his perspective on how MSMEs can thrive within public procurement frameworks and the role of government in fostering an ecosystem that supports both economic growth and social equity. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming DTI Assistant Secretary 𝗍𝗂𝗃
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Good morning po, ED Weng. Good morning, Ma'am Boots, our friends from the World Bank, ADB, UN, USAID, my fellow government workers, as well as other members of GPPB-TSO. Happy Procurement Summit to everyone. It's my first time here in the GPPB-TSO building. Very brand new, ma'ams. Thank you so much for welcoming us. Going up here, I saw the fair. Thank you so much to the GPPB-TSO for always supporting our MSMEs. As you know, ED, MSMEs are very close to the heart of our present Secretary Chris Alteguer-Roque. Prior to her promotion as secretary, she was undersecretary for our MSME development group. Unfortunately, she could not attend this morning's summit, so she sent me instead. I will do my best to try to share with you our practices at the DTI. I prepared my presentation for the panel discussion. And so for this discussion, I will be already sharing in advance my talking points. So the topic of our procurement summit is advancing inclusivity and sustainability in procurement through local MSMEs. At the DTI, I am the supervising head of our management services group. That means I oversee other than administration, finance, but also procurement. Next slide. Okay, so this is to answer how DTI is helping MSMEs access public procurement. Oh, thank you. Public procurement opportunities. Well, this was brought up by Secretary Pangandaman earlier, which is the passage of the new Government Procurement Act. The DTI welcomes the passage and the issuance of the implementing rules and regulations. We're very happy that there is now an alternative to the lowest responsive competitive bid. One of the perks in public procurement is sometimes with the definition of the lowest responsive bid, you don't get the quality that one expects. I remember a conversation I had with Secretary Roque, and one of the things that we bid out are booths that you see in trade fairs. Incidentally, we just finished rolling out the Manila Fame at the World Trade Center. Hopefully, you were able to drop by this past weekend. We do have other trade fairs going on. I think in SM Mega Mall for our different regions. Please check out our website, dti.gov.ph, for more details. We have Region 4A, Region 3, Eastern Visayas roll out their trade fairs, where we have many MSMEs, of course, and women MSMEs. And going back to my story, when you procure under the old procurement law or 9184, the secretary, as the head of MSME development group back then, noticed that the booths were very shabby. And we're very hopeful that under the new Procurement Act and its IRR, we'll be able to get more quality kinds of booths for our MSMEs. So it looks enticing to buyers when they go shopping in our trade fairs. We're also very happy that the period in procuring under the new law is reduced from 90 days to 60 days. So, and we're happy with the inclusivity provisions of that new law. Okay, so to answer how DTI is helping MSMEs access public procurement opportunities, when I saw this question, it really made me reflect if we actually had any MSMEs when we do our procurement activities at the DTI. So I chair the Bids and Awards Committee at the DTI, and other than lease of venue, procuring and renting of booths, we buy a lot of tech, and a lot of our tech is really not homemade. But I do see an opportunity, ED Weng, for more of our MSMEs to join our public procurement practices. There are a lot of challenges already mentioned by Ma'am Boots, and hopefully I can talk about them in the few minutes that I have left. So the DTI has always worked with the GPPB-TSO. Back in COVID time, pandemic time, GPPB and DTI underwent several training programs for our MSMEs on then the GPRA, the Government Procurement Act. Moving forward with the new law, we would like to tie up again with the GPPB-TSO as well as the DBM in rolling out more CapDev activities to really empower our MSMEs to participate in government procurement. One thing that I noticed on why very few MSMEs join procurement is government is slow in paying them. And sometimes MSMEs don't have enough capital, liquidity to be able to withstand the number of months that government pays them. Hopefully with the new rules, sorry, ED Weng, I have not studied every provision of the new IRR. But hopefully with the reduction from 90 days to 60 days, government is also able to pay them faster. And to be honest, that's one of the reasons why a lot of MSMEs don't participate. So So one thing, we have to inform them how to be PhilJEPS accredited and how to get PhilJEPS Platinum accreditation. And another thing is how can we help them be liquid? I have slides on the financial assistance that the DTI has, maybe help our MSMEs and our WMSMEs, participate in our government procurement. Of course, under our Republic Act 6977 or the Magna Carta for MSMEs, we do have a requirement there that MSMEs shall be entitled to a share of at least 10% of the total procurement value of goods and services supplied to government. So that still stays. We also have the new law, Republic Act 11981. Saddened that Secretary Angara won't be able to join us. I don't know if others from DepEd or from his office would be able to elaborate on the beauty of this law, the Tatak Pinoy Proudly Filipino Act. It re-emphasizes our Filipino first policy, our domestic preference uh, for goods in public procurement. And hopefully, with the issuance of the Tatak Pinoy strategy, the council would have already identified all of these products and services that are protected and given domestic preference. They may be given a green lane, and a lot of them would be awarded our government contracts. This is not just for finished goods, but also would include raw materials, ingredients, and other parts. Like parts we may not be able to produce the next laptop or the next iPhone, but we will produce at least parts for them. I remember Edie Weng, when Secretary Fred was still the head of the DTI, he said that it pains him that we export a lot of iron ore only to return to the Philippines as processed goods already. And I think the Tatak Pinoy Act seeks to address that and encourage our local companies, even our MSMEs, to convert their raw materials to processed materials and goods. So I think this goes hand in hand with the new procurement law, as well as our theme for this year's summit. The incumbent Secretary Roque, also last July, and this will be online, if I'm not mistaken, this November of 2024, which is the DTI B2B e-marketplace. It's our online platform wherein all of our accredited and registered MSMEs will be able to do business amongst each other. So right now, what we do, our MSMEs get to interact with each other, get to purchase raw materials from each other, would be in our trade fairs. So the secretary instructed us to establish this e-marketplace. I think it goes hand in hand with DBM's procurement e-marketplace. But essentially, this is for our MSMEs to produce processed materials. Secretary Roque has this explanation or example. Let's say that an MSME is into baking and would require raw materials such as ube. Normally, they would get their raw mats, or they would get their suppliers from the community. Kung sino po, sorry for those who do not understand Filipino, kung sino po yung may kakilala po na gumagawa po ng ube, tatawagan na lang po sila. But the problem is, what happens if the source or supply locally runs out? Not knowing that there are other suppliers of ube within the region or in the other islands, the business of the entrepreneur stops and ends there because there's no raw materials to grow bigger. And we have a lot of ube producers. This example also applies to coffee, and we have a lot of providers of coffee beans coming from Cordillera down to Mindanao, South Cotabato. and other producers. So hopefully, MSMEs will be able to buy from fellow MSMEs to to grow their business. And when they grow their business, ED Weng, they'll be able to participate more in government. I'm not sure if that makes sense, but both secretaries of the DTI, Secretary Fred and Secretary Chris, said that for our MSMEs, the vision of DTI is for them to actually graduate from their current standing, not for them to stay as micro, not for them to stay as small, and not to stay as medium, but for them to graduate from micro to small, small to medium, and then medium to large. And then the only way for them to do that is if they're given more raw materials. And sometimes one of the barriers for them to graduate is because they lack these raw materials. And hopefully this marketplace solves that issue. Another office, this one is under our OTOP office, our One Town, One Product office. There's another e-marketplace being developed by another bureau called our Export Management Bureau, or EMB. That's Director Bianca. And she also has an online platform called PHX, which is for our MSMEs who would like to grow over and beyond our shores and export their products abroad, like furniture, clothing, even other processed goods. So those are the things that the DTI is doing in order for our MSMEs to grow and graduate from where they are. Next question is DTI's initiatives to provide training, mentoring, and resources to help MSMEs meet procurement requirements, adopt sustainable practices, and improve competitiveness. I've already mentioned our CAP Dev and training activities we have with DBM and GPPB, so I won't elaborate on that. Let me focus now on sustainable practices. Since this is since 2016 or even earlier than that, the DTI has already established the Green Economic Development Program, or GED, as well as the Sustainable Practice and Reporting Kickoff Series, or SPARK, in partnership with the Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI, which focuses on building sustainable reporting capacity of our MSMEs. The project aimed to train 8,000 MSMEs on sustainability practices through training and mentoring for sustainable modules. Sorry, I made that statement as a question because I do not oversee this. I'm just sharing with you what was shared with me by the office that leads this program. Sorry, I should be more assertive with my statement and not in a question form. The GET program also have the Green Information and Action Plan, providing MSMEs with access to knowledge and tools to implement sustainable strategies, while the Green Matching component connects MSMEs with potential partners, suppliers, and buyers that prioritize sustainable practices. In my head, aside from the other councils that the DTI Secretary is a member and chairs of, we are also part of the Bamboo Development Council. DTI's role in supporting MSMEs that produce eco-friendly, innovative, and sustainable products, and aligning their participation in government sustainability goals. Green Framework Conditions component of the GET program. Like I mentioned, we have the Spark series. The Spark template tracks their progress in implementing sustainable practices such as resource efficiency, waste management, and reducing their environment footprint. Now let's move on to where Ma'am Boots mentioned about our assistance for our women entrepreneurs and our WMSMEs. DTI's role in gender responsive procurement. We have around 860,000 new registrants for our business name last year, and 120,000 business name renewals. And for both sectors, majority of those come from the women's sector. So majority of our MSME owners or business owners are women. 60% for new registrants, and 50% for those who renewed their business name. Also, of the businesses, MSMEs who availed of our DTI enterprise development programs, 60% are women. And the program includes business information, trainings, marketing, product development, and the like. So it's there. A lot of our MSMEs that we collaborate with, that we support, that we assist, come from the women sector. And yet there are challenges, as already mentioned by Ma'am Boots earlier. Our women businesses have limited market reach. Businesses typically owned by females tend to be classified as micro, operating mostly within their immediate communities and their localities. There's a difficulty in complying to market standards, quality and quantity requirements. So we really need to further move our CapDev activities for our women entrepreneurs, as well as to break into government procurement for a bigger market. We have to let them realize that it's fine for them to grow their business within the community, but it's also good to grow and participate in public procurement. DTI's role in providing access to financing options, grants, and others that enable MSMEs to participate in procurement activities, especially for sustainability practices. So this would hopefully help our MSMEs stay liquid when they do participate in government, and they do have to wait a few weeks. Hopefully, it's reduced to days when government pays them. Is to provide them with financial assistance. We do have an arm called the Small Business Corporation. Small Business Corporation now has several programs that actually assist our MSMEs, not just women MSMEs, but MSMEs. First is the P3 program, o Pondo sa Pagbabago at Pag-asenso, or program, a microfinancing initiative designed to bring down the interest rate and replace 5-6 microfinance scheme that is made available to our micro enterprises. The P3 program will provide loans to business centers of the poorest provinces where the participating microfinance institutions and SB Corp can operate. These are for MSMEs or micro enterprises that do not have access to credit or access it at very high cost. We also have our Rise Up multipurpose loan, and this is a program for those coming from the pandemic, but it's continued even today and next year. We have a micro multipurpose loan facility for MSMEs, new MSMEs with at least 1 year of business track record, and we can provide loans up to 300,000 pesos. We also have our first-time borrower loan facility for MSMEs. These are for small businesses with 2 years of business. And then we also have our Suki loan facility and enterprise rehabilitation program for businesses that are affected by typhoons and disasters and other calamities. For startups, the DTI also has assistance not only from SB Corp but also from another GOCC of ours called the National Development Company, or NDC. The NDC operates the Startup Venture Fund. The SB Corp has the Venture Capital Program. The SB Corp also launched this new program called Purchase Order Financing. I think this is another problem that Secretary Roque noticed of our MSMEs. Yes, we will have our trade fairs, like the one on the ground floor, like the ones we have in Mega Mall and in Glorieta and in other areas. But when a potential buyer goes and then gives a purchase order that the MSME or small business does not have enough capital to produce, di sayang lang po, no, yung opportunity where they meet each other. So SB Corp crafted this purchase order financing, provide short-term capital for enterprises with purchase orders from domestic and foreign buyers who are included in one of the following categories: top 5,000 corporations of the country, industry anchor firms and franchisors, or foreign companies importing products from registered Philippine companies. As much as 80% of the PO value can be accessed. So next time a buyer goes to a trade fair or maybe checks our online e-marketplace, places a PO that the MSME cannot finance, can get a PO financing from SP Corp. There's a startup loan facility for our startups and a franchising loan facility for businesses that would like to franchise their programs. So that ends my discussion for this morning. I think we do have opportunity to answer questions later. Thank you so much, and congratulations again to GPPBTSO for a successful procurement summit.
Thank you very much. Again, that was DTI Assistant Secretary Attorney Michael 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃. Thank you very much, sir, for that insightful perspective on the critical role of the MSMEs in the government procurement processes. And of course, most especially, thank you very much, Attorney, for sharing your most special day with us. Happy birthday, Attorney Michael. All right, but before we proceed to our next panel resource speaker, we have prepared po, no, our Pika Pika table located at the farther side of our venue. You may kindly get your snack as we proceed po with our plenary discussion. And Attorney Christian is correct po, no? We have our plenary panel discussion later after all of our resource speakers. So if you already have questions, just please keep them in your pockets, because again, we will be having our plenary discussion later on. So at this point, let us proceed to our third panel resource speaker. Our resource speaker is from the Asian Development Bank. ADB has been a key partner in supporting sustainable economic development and is deeply committed to fostering MSME growth in the Philippines. Today, he will share how ADB's programs empower local MSMEs to participate more actively in public procurement, creating opportunities for economic resilience and sustainable growth. We look forward to learning more about ADB's efforts to promote inclusive, transparent, and competitive procurement practices across the country. Apologies for the technical boo-boos. And so please join me, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's welcome ADB Senior Procurement Specialist, Mr. 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗃.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm relatively new in the Philippines, and I've been very recently outpost at the Philippines country office. So I was not really expecting what to see before coming here. And I am very happy to see that I think there are more women in the room than men. So that's a very, very promising thing. I would like to share, first of all, when we were invited and when I heard the subject MSMEs, I first thought a private sector finance specialist from ADB should come rather than a procurement specialist. But after giving a second thought, I think that's the right thing. It's a procurement summit. It's not a private sector financing summit. It's a procurement summit at the end. And there have been a lot of good talks about how to incorporate MSMEs in the value chain, in the supply chain, in the big packages. So I will a little bit try to talk about that. So sustainable procurement, you have heard a lot. The word sustainability is probably the number one word which we've been hearing until now. So why are we doing it? It's a very simple answer. The world is at stake, and we don't have another world to live. That's why we need sustainable procurement. And what are we doing? Because during the prayers, there was a sentence: procurement is a powerful tool for common good. I strongly agree with that. What we are trying to do is to structure our procurement exercises, procurement practices to align with our sustainability goals. And how can we do it together? Although a lot is being taught about sustainable procurement, still there is a lot of room for growth. And how can we do it together? It takes a village to raise a child. And we all need to work together on it. Not only governments, MDBs, ADB, World Bank, I can see here, we cannot do it alone. We have to work all together as a society. Next slide, please. Just to give you a small idea of how we can impact the world. So this is the visible side of the iceberg and sustainable procurement examples so far. An ADB contracts awarded every year is roughly greater than $9 billion. ADB total loans and grants in the Philippines in the last year was around $11 billion. And disbursements last year was around $2.9 billion. The worldwide, I think there is a missing thing here. If you can press again, press the button, it will come up, I think. Yeah, just press the arrow. The worldwide public procurement is around $13 trillion. Can you imagine the impact we can make on the world by applying sustainable procurement practices? Next, please. Yeah, now it come here. Just general public procurement, 13 trillions every year. Yes. Next slide, please. But what is sustainable public procurement? When I was a graduate from civil engineering, I was asking to my elder people, what is sustainable procurement? Is it about environment? And they were saying mostly yes. And then in years I learned it's not, it is more than green. It has 4 pillars: environmental, social, economic, and institutional. Sustainability of all these pillars are very important. It's like the legs of a table. If one of the legs is not there, the table will fall down. So where do MSMEs sit in this 4 pillars? I think social, economic, environmental, and I would say all of it, probably, right? Can you think of a sustainable economy of a country without MSMEs? No. If MSMEs are not there, that economy will not be sustainable. So you have to incorporate sustainability provisions in your procurement practices to foster MSMEs in all respects. And why are MSMEs also important in this one? For example, environmental. Sometimes larger companies cannot move fast. MSMEs are more agile. They are more adaptive to the environment. So they may have more innovative solutions. Next slide, please. I'd also like to share with you that for the coming years, this is the future. ADB has recently approved the country partnership strategy for 2024 to 2029. So it will focus on 3 key areas: human development, economic competitiveness, and quality infrastructure, as well as nature-based development and disaster resilience. It is downloadable on the internet. You may have a look at it with an easy Google search. So we see there are a lot of challenges, which actually you know better than we do. There are sometimes complex regulatory standards, lengthy bureaucratic processes sometimes, outdated and fragmented digital service channels, systems, and databases. We hope that we have heard a lot of good things about the new Procurement Act, and we believe that it will address majority of these problems. But when there are problems, all businesses get affected, but MSMEs more, and disproportionately. 99.6% of all enterprises in the Philippines are MSMEs, according to a survey in 2022. And 65.1% of total employment was also at MSMEs. So lending is also largely directed at conglomerates, limiting MSMEs' access to finance, which account for less than 10% of commercial lending. Financial inclusion of MSMEs is hindered by the limited capacity of rural banks and microfinance institutions. So, how can MSMEs participate in ADB-lended projects? There are a couple of ways. First of all, financing products. Direct financing purposes. What ADB does is, as I told at the beginning, I am not a private sector financing specialist, but a procurement specialist. ADB makes agreements with sovereign banks or non-sovereign banks, through which MSMEs can get credits, loans, minor ones. But I think the most important one is in the second one. ADB encourages participation of MSMEs in its tender opportunities, either directly or through associations. In your seat, you may think ADB's projects are very large. Some of them are hundreds of millions of dollars. Some of them are even $1 billion packages. I am a small company. How can I participate in those tenders? I think Isaac from DTI has mentioned about least cost selection. ADB strongly supports that we should move away from least cost selection. And we are encouraging our borrowers to put criteria, technical criteria in their procurement exercise as to how to select their contractors. I have put one sample here. This is not something what I've written. This is from a booklet, guidance note of ADB, Sustainable Procurement. It says, if you look at the bottom, social impacts such as promotion of involvement by local small and medium-sized enterprises. So we are encouraging our borrowers and employers, please put criteria in your procurement documents to give the signal to the contractors how much SMSE they have involved in their proposal. So if a large contractor submits a bid to the employer funded by ADB, a project, you should be there. And they will get a score for that. So we are trying to make them feel they cannot do without you. So be aware of that. But for doing that, you should be also innovative. You should also be agile. You should have communications with them and try to put yourself, incorporate in that system. That's, I think, the second main most important thing. The third one is ADB's corporate procurement, which is a relatively smaller thing. ADB is, as you know, sitting in Philippines, with HQ in the Philippines. So ADB procures a lot of services, goods, works for itself. And you can, of course, follow the tender opportunities for those. Next slide, please. Just one small project example. There was a project called Skill Up Net, SUN PH. ADB has provided, it was a grant program from $20,000 to $80,000. And it was focusing on 5 priority sectors. Next slide, please. If you are interested on direct private sector financing, it's easy. Just go to ADB website. This is what you will find now. And next slide, please. And under the same page, you will see financial products and guarantees and what we are doing. There's a trade and supply chain finance program, which is very, if you may have heard about it, it is very related, closely related with MSMEs. And you can have a look at the financial products. And if you have any questions, you will have the links there, contacts. You can directly write to ADB and ask for further information. Next slide, please. So looking ahead, ADB plans to expand its support, focusing on increasing financial access and enhancing the resilience of MSMEs. By continuing these efforts, ADB aims to foster a more inclusive and sustainable economic environment in the Philippines. Salamat po. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was ADB Senior Procurement Specialist, Mr. 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗂𝗂𝗆. Thank you, sir, for sharing ADB's valuable initiatives that foster and support MSMEs. Now it is my equal pleasure to introduce our fourth and final panel resource speaker from the International Trade Center, who will be joining us virtually. The ITC plays a pivotal role in helping local MSMEs connect with international markets and integrate into global supply chains, enhancing their competitiveness on the world stage. Through various capacity building programs, the ITC equips MSMEs with tools, knowledge, and skills they need to meet global market standards, enabling them to thrive in competitive international environments. Our resource speaker will share how the ITC's work supports these businesses in breaking down trade barriers, expanding opportunities, and ensuring their meaningful participation in global supply chains. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Policy and Data Lead for She Trades Initiative of the International Trade Center. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Maria Diana 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗂𝗏.
Good day, everyone, and thank you very much for this opportunity to talk about gender-responsive public procurement. I am 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗂𝗏, Data and Policy Lead at ITC She Trades Initiative. ITC is a joint agency of the UN and the WTO that supports the internationalization of small and medium-sized enterprises. Specifically, the She Trades Initiative supports women-led businesses by partnering with different stakeholders around the world to create the right capacities and conditions for women to do business and trade. Across the world, governments spend 12% of GDP on public contracts. However, only 1% of these contracts go to women-led businesses. This presents a huge opportunity for us to leverage public procurement as a tool for women's economic empowerment and gender equality. When we include more women in the public procurement market, we can create a fairer and more diverse competition, which can lead to greater participation of women in the economy, gender equality, and overall economic growth. We can do this by promoting gender-responsive public procurement, which only means incorporating a gender equality perspective into the way we do public procurement. We can do this by tackling the challenges and issues that women face when they participate in the procurement market, which includes misfit tender designs, limited tendering opportunities, insufficient time to prepare bids, very complicated requirements, and lack of access to information, technology, and tendering skills. At ITC She Trades Initiative, we collaborate with governments across the world to transform public procurement systems to make them more conducive for women to participate. This includes helping governments develop gender-responsive public procurement policies, adopt national definitions of women-led and women-owned businesses, collect gender disaggregated data of suppliers in public procurement, train public procurement officials on gender-sensitive practices, allocate a certain percentage of public tenders to women-led businesses, and implement targeted strategies to make sure women can participate and win public tenders. For example, we have partnered with the governments of Bangladesh, Liberia, and the Gambia to make public procurement work for women. Specifically in Bangladesh, we have collaborated with the Public Procurement Authority to map challenges and opportunities for women in public procurement, raise awareness among the public procurement officials and women-led businesses on strategies to make the public procurement more inclusive, and consulted women to develop a policy that works for them. We have also reviewed the draft policy and provided recommendations for gender mainstreaming. And in December 2023, the government has finally adopted the Sustainable Public Procurement Policy, which includes provisions for women to participate and win public tenders. Building on our experience on gender-responsive public procurement, ITC has launched a global campaign on the topic. We are inviting governments to join the campaign and show support by submitting a statement or a pledge. As of now, 22 countries and organizations have already joined the campaign and showed commitment to leveraging public procurement as a tool for women's economic empowerment. We hope that the government of the Philippines could also join the campaign soon, especially with the new Public Procurement Act that includes gender-responsive public procurement as one of its pillars. We hope that we can also do similar work in country by partnering with the Government Public Procurement Board in the Philippines. ITC stands ready to collaborate not only with the government, but also with women's business associations and other stakeholders on promoting gender-responsive public procurement and advancing the trade and gender agenda. With this, I thank you again for this opportunity and looking forward to continued collaboration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was Policy and Data Lead for She Trades Initiatives, Ms. Maria Diana 𝗟𝗲𝗃. And of course, thank you all for our plenary resource speakers for your valuable insights and thought-provoking contributions. Now, we've heard about the transformative potential of empowering local MSMEs in public procurement and the critical roles that government policies and innovative practices play in this journey. Now we transition into our panel discussion, where we will delve deeper into the theme of this year's summit. This session will provide an opportunity for our esteemed panelists to engage in a dynamic conversation, sharing their perspectives on how we can collectively leverage local MSMEs to foster inclusive and sustainable procurement practices. Our panelists will also address the challenges faced by MSMEs, explore best practices, and discuss actionable strategies that can enhance their participation in public procurement. We encourage you to engage actively in this discussion, as your questions and insights are vital to driving the conversation forward. Now, may I call back on stage our esteemed resource speakers, and please join us here in our cozy spot in our stage right here. So again, we have microphones available in the side. You may just approach them if you have questions later on. Now, to lead us in the discussion, I am pleased to introduce our panel moderator from the United Nations Women Philippines. Our panel moderator has extensive experience in promoting gender equality and women's empowerment through various programs and initiatives. Her leadership in advocating for the discussion of women and economic activities, particularly in public, perfectly with the theme of our summit. Under her guidance, our panelists will delve deeper into the discussions we've initiated today, exploring how we can effectively leverage local MSMEs to drive inclusivity and sustainability in procurement. Ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome from the United Nations Women Philippines, Ms. Sigrid John Sibo.
So yeah, good morning, everyone. I'd like to extend a warm welcome, of course, to all participants here today, the distinguished guests and speakers earlier, here at the 2024 rather, Procurement Summit. So as mentioned, I am Sigrid, the Strategic Planning and Coordination Analyst of UN Women here in the Philippines. The theme of our summit, leveraging local MSMEs for inclusive and sustainable procurement, resonates profoundly with our collective goals of fostering inclusivity and sustainability within our procurement practices. The theme of the summit is very much aligned with UN Women's past efforts to promote sustainability, inclusion, and economic empowerment, especially of women and women-led and owned businesses. And thus, we are very grateful for the GPPB TSO for the opportunity provided to us, UN Women, to be part of this and understand where to best align future efforts to work with different stakeholders. As Sir Mehmet Sina mentioned earlier, it takes a village to raise a child. Okay, so before we delve into our discussion, I'd like to take a moment to briefly highlight some of the key points from our panelists earlier, from the presentations of our panelists earlier. So Ms. 𝗟𝗏𝗃𝗏 shared her insights on the importance of empowering MSMEs, particularly women-led and women-owned enterprises. She particularly highlighted their crucial role in achieving and the crucial role of gender equality in fostering an inclusive economy, driving growth and creating opportunities that benefit communities at large. Just give me a sec. As well as their crucial roles in promoting inclusive economy. And of course, we appreciate her recommendations, very concrete recommendations for the private sector and the government. Attorney Chris from DTI highlighted the government's initiatives aimed at creating an enabling environment for the sustainability of local MSMEs. He underscored the importance of these efforts in fostering growth and resilience among MSMEs, ensuring they can thrive in a competitive market. And of course, Mr. Sina from ADB highlighted the bank's commitment to fostering the development of MSMEs in the Philippines. He discussed ADB's various initiatives aimed at improving access to finance for these enterprises, including especially the ADB's corporate procurement policy, which I'm very curious about as well. Perhaps I do have questions later on that. And services tailored to meet their unique demands and needs, rather. By supporting MSMEs, ADB aims to enhance their resilience and increase their participation in public procurement, ultimately contributing to sustainable economic growth. And of course, our colleague from International Trade Center, Ms. Jem Arbo, emphasized the importance of expanding opportunities for MSMEs and ensuring their meaningful participation in global supply chains. Okay. All right, so we will now open the floor for Q&A session. I encourage our audience, our participants here today to engage with our panelists by asking questions or sharing your thoughts. Of course, you may raise your hand and a microphone will be brought to you by the Secretariat. And we kindly ask you that you introduce yourself by stating your name, the agency or institution you represent, and indicate to whom your question is directed. And of course, if our participants are not comfortable or they're more comfortable to submit their questions and secretly and anonymously, you can still engage with our panelists through the official Slido page for the 2024 Procurement Summit. And you can simply scan the QR code now displayed on the screen or on your tables or on the walls to submit your questions or concerns at any time. So that's a very quite long opening to our panel discussion. But okay, so to kick off the discussion with some questions, to give our participants some time to gather their thoughts and formulate the questions, I do have a question. Firstly to Edie Weng. And of course, any of our panelists who would want to share their insights. My question for you, Edie Weng, is enhancing the transparency of the procurement process is crucial for fostering trust among local MSMEs and to really help them to actively and fully engage and participate in government procurement process. In your perspective, as of course the ED of GPPB TSO, what specific measures can be implemented to make the procurement process more transparent and thereby build greater trust with these local MSMEs?
Agrees for that question. I think I want to tackle that question two ways. First is really how we view transparency in empowering MSMEs. We saw this during the pandemic, and that's why we actually co-created with the DTI Competitiveness Bureau a program for MSMEs because a lot of them are very, very interested in actually participating in public procurement. In fact, DTI encouraged them, but they're somehow really lost given the very, let's say, opaque procurement process. Not a lot of MSMEs heard about GPPB or PhilGEPs. And I think that's the very first step by which we can really ensure and use, in fact, transparency. Transparency isn't just posting of information. We need to be able to actually co-create, co-design with MSMEs the program that would help them. I'm very, very happy to have invited DTI and for them to have shared earlier the many programs of DTI. And this is something that we should embed in our CapDev activities. Not just so much the technicalities of procurement, but actually giving them the right kind of information to actually participate. It's not just telling them these are the requirements and do everything that you can to be able to join, but it's really opening all doors so that they can actually participate. And part of that isn't just CapDev activities, but also giving the right kind of information and really providing them all possibilities and entry points so that they can join. Second, I think in terms of ensuring public procurement integrity and trust, and this is where I think technology would help. We've really been pushing for an end-to-end public procurement process because without automation, it would be very difficult to really gain the trust of the public in terms of how we procure and in terms of really ensuring procurement integrity. Why is that? Sheer automation will not be enough. For as long as there's human intervention, it would be very difficult to really ensure a very, very solid, strong process in terms of procurement. And I think this is where also government can take advantage of this process so that we avoid the fragmented system that often we have in government. We often hear about the whole of government approach, and yet we do hear of varying systems across the government. So if you're an MSME or if you're part of, a member of the public, you don't seem to know where to go to. And sometimes we have to realize that if there's a fragmented system, that doesn't help in really empowering the public or the MSME. Fuse. While there's a very good system, they can actually add to the confusion. And sometimes, maybe unintentionally, it is used or taken advantage by certain, groups or individuals to really somehow distort and muddle procurement processes. And we don't want that. And with the end-to-end integrated procurement process in the new Government Procurement Act, all regulatory offices are actually mandated to align with one another and to talk through the systems so that it's really one government approach, particularly in public procurement. I'll stop there and let the others also contribute. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Boots.
If I may react, because we are the beneficiaries of the reforms that you're trying to introduce. You mentioned about being more participative in crafting. You have 100 so many days to craft the IRR. I would suggest really serious consultation with the users of the procurement system that you eventually establish. Someone mentioned something about being MSMEs being asked to participate in consultations and they do not appear. Maybe we should also ask the question why they're not appearing. There might be limitations, whether it's ability to attend. Well, now that we have virtual options, then of course there is no excuse for transportation or access. Secondly, is I also participate in a lot of consultations, and I think one of the things that government sometimes misses is giving us feedback. So what happened to our recommendation? Okay. So sometimes we get this feeling that you're only doing this for purposes of compliance. That because there is a rule that with respect to crafting legislation or IRR, the stakeholders should be consulted. But I have to say that we have not really felt that our suggestions, our views have been taken into consideration. And final point is, it's interesting to hear many of the programs that are going on, whether TTI, government. I think one of the things which government also lacks is communication. Fortunately, I'm engaged with SB Corp. We're trying to develop a women lending window. And so I'm familiar with some of the things that you, otherwise I would not have known. And in fact, 2 weeks from now or next week, we are going to meet with the SB Corp to really understand and have an orientation on what are these products so that we can convey them as well to our constituencies. But just a point to consider.
Ms. Woods, very, very quickly, I wanted to respond to that. And we hear you. And in fact, that's why ahead of the effectivity of the law, we launched the NGPA microsite. The whole idea behind it is because we only have 180 days to do the IRR. There really isn't much to be able for us to do in terms of consultation. But having this online platform really allows us to be able to reach out to those who may not be able to join us. In fact, as I mentioned early on, we received around 200 proposals already. And I encourage everybody to visit the microsite. But very, very good important point earlier about feedback. Yes, I agree. We do often forget that. We just somehow just let the stakeholders just read the final output and be done with it. But rest assured that we're not doing this consultation as a matter of compliance. In fact, we took advantage of this summit, and later this afternoon, we have no less than our support coming from the Australian government through P4I, facilitating the workshop consultation later this afternoon for inclusive public procurement. So if you're available, please do join us in that workshop session this afternoon. Thank you.
I'll just add to the conversation on how to encourage our MSMEs to participate in public procurement and how not to discourage them. Because sometimes with the technical documents, ED Weng, it especially if they make a mistake, it's very discouraging, not only for MSMEs, but for any business that imagine how many copies of their technical documents that they need to photocopy and then put in envelopes and then submit to us, only to be disqualified during the opening of technical documents because their tax clearance, although updated, was not submitted properly. So as a procuring entity, I think there's a conflict of interest if we're the ones who will check for their tech doc. Maybe there is an NGO or a CSO or international organization that can provide some kind of application wherein they submit their documents and the AI reads it and then tells them that, oh, your tax clearance isn't updated. You will be DQ'd when the documents are open. We have our business focals in our negosyo centers, but I think there's conflict of interest if we advise them on that because they're going to join our procurement. So maybe that can be resolved. Otherwise, a lot of them will be discouraged if they get disqualified due to a small technicality, ma'am.
Very quickly also, as a Chris, it's good that you raised that concern. That's what I meant earlier about really an end-to-end process. What we are working on in the IRR is so that when a market operator or supplier registers with the PhilJEP system will now integrate with BIR, with SEC, with DTI, with the PCAB for infrastructure. The only problem we really have right now or difficulty is in terms of LGUs with the mayor's permit. So we've been trying to take out mayor's permit, but I think politically that's going to be very difficult. But that's the whole point of the integration of regulatory offices. We don't want us to be submitting documents over and over and over again. I always say it should be like going to the skyway. It will be straight towards your endpoint. You don't have to go down to EDSA again and then go back to the skyway. So that's one thing. And we're looking at this not only for public bidding, but also for small value procurement. Meaning, we want to be able to really populate the PhilJEPs with market operators and come up with a system that would really allow for market operators to digitally submit their for request for quotations, for instance, and the system will already be the one to identify, at least for low cost criteria, the one with the lowest calculated responsive bid. So that all you really have to do is just go to register to the system, and so that the system will do much of the work for you, including public bidding. All the bids and awards committee would have to do is to validate the bid validation, the post qualification, so you can really focus on the more important aspect of procurement, which, if you ask me, is really the designing part. It shouldn't really be the selection criteria. And internationally, that's really the thinking. We should really put less effort in the selection because you do have actually systems. You actually have a lot of tools in place. What we should really focus on, especially if we're really thinking about sustainable design, is really working on from the design stage. Not afterthought, not trying to, to try to make your project comply with any sort of sustainability standards after you've already posted your bid opportunity. So these are the things that we're really very, very hopeful, very, very much working on. And that's why we need the help of all the stakeholders to help us not only design what we think are good in terms of transparency and public integrity in procurement, to help all stakeholders, MSMEs and others, but to really co-create and co-design this so that we have all of the aspects of public procurement really strong and solid when we lay out and we roll out rather the IRR. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much for the insights from our three of our panelists. Of course, it's clear that transparency and, of course, procurement integrity are key to fostering trust and driving meaningful engagement with local MSMEs. I particularly would want to highlight the conversations around closing the loop in terms of communications with local MSMEs, from consultation, feedback, and then response from the government on where we are in terms of their recommendation. And also highlight the need to be intentional at the design stage in order to make our systems not only, of course, inclusive, transparent, but also efficient. Thank you for that. And for my second question is to Sir Chris. Happy birthday. In your presentation earlier, you highlighted some data points on new business registrants from there is sort of an echo or a feedback. Apologies. Data points on women business registrations, as well as renewed business registrations. But out of curiosity, sir, because you've also mentioned that the goal of the DTI is to help MSMEs graduate from their current level. And as such, I am curious whether does DTI have sort of data of how many, let's say, women-owned or women businesses at micro level, small enterprises, medium enterprises, just so, because I do think that there is a need there's no one size fits all approach in building the capacities of MSMEs to expand their reach.
Yes, Sigurd. I think our Bureau of Small and Medium Enterprises Development or BSMED has the information on the breakdown of the number of women-owned businesses on the micro, small, and medium level. I just don't have that, but I think we do have a breakdown.
Because I think that's a very good starting point to understand what are their needs. Yes, Ms. Boots.
Now, this is the typical comment that's made on policy reform, etc. The lack of sex disaggregated data, which is so basic. Unless we know who our stakeholders are, who our beneficiaries are, we can craft policy, but it may not be as effective if we do not really understand where they are, geographically. Are they micro? Are they small, etc. So I think importantly, as in all policy exercises, disaggregated data is important. So I'd also like, I'm not calling out DTI for this, but DTI does have an MSME development plan. Why not carve out the women MSME development plan? Government says MSME is the backbone of the economy. SMME is comprised 50, whatever, at least 60% women. Would it not help if we actually also put some focus or put a gender lens on the development plan suggestion, so that I think some people may not realize that there are nuances which are unique to women enterprises, which others would say, oh, it's all MSMEs, the problems are the same. No, in fact, there are differences. And so therefore, my suggestion is to really have a gender lens on the plan.
Thank you, Ms. Boots. And Sir Chris, if you'd allow me for another question, because you also shared earlier the Green Economic Development Program and those things, as well as the challenges that MSMEs face in scaling their businesses. If you could further share on what DTI is doing to address these challenges to help MSMEs scale their businesses. If you could further expound or share. Thank you.
Yes. So yeah, through our resource generation management service or RGMS, they're the ones who coordinate with our international funders to incorporate sustainability practices for our MSMEs. This is a long-standing program that the DTI already implements, which is really CapDev down to our negosyo centers for MSMEs on how to make their products sustainable. So bamboo, other food products, when they produce them, not to use non-environmental friendly activities. So yeah, down to our regional offices, they conduct these activities.
Thank you.
And then provide them also with the templates, which includes their action plans, so that everything becomes sustainable later on, not just a one-off activity.
Thank you, sir. And that's also linked to intentionality in design at the design stage. Of course, to Miss Boots, as a champion and advocate for gender equality in business, what practical advice would you offer to women-led or women-owned MSMEs who are facing challenges in meeting the requirements for government contracts or participating in government procurement? And specifically, how can they overcome these barriers to increase their chances of success in public procurement?
I think to begin with, as I mentioned in my talk earlier, women-owned MSMEs are usually small, micro, and not formal. They don't, they're registered. Okay, at least they register their businesses, but that stage where they're not yet eligible to participate in procurement for whatever reason, because they're not properly registered. Maybe they don't keep books, they don't get their proper permits and licenses, which are all requirements for public procurement, which I think we all agree is necessary to ensure that the award is made to a legitimate uh, entity. That said, I think the first thing that women should do is to find out what are these requirements and prepare their businesses to be qualified to meet the requirements. Size should not be an excuse to be operate legitimately. I don't think it should be an excuse. But on the other hand, going back to the question earlier, comment earlier, I think there's also a benefit for government to review the requirements to make it less stringent and more friendly, I guess, to women, to MSMEs in general, not only to women MSMEs, but to make them friendly and more easy to comply with, I think, rather than complicate. Because, you know, I I hear MSMEs telling me it's so difficult to bid for a government project to the point that we ask the question, are they really interested for us to bid? Or it's just, again, back to the question of compliance, that we have in fact invited small businesses to participate. So understanding the requirements, preparing for them to ensure you are compliant should be the starting point.
If I may add to the point of Ms. Boots, and that's why we're very serious about the inclusive public procurement provision in the new law. The idea there is that there can't be one size fits all. If there's a recognition on what are the challenges with MSMEs, then there is that mindset to actually make sure when you review the requirements, this is something that would allow a more diverse suppliers to join, a more diverse set of suppliers to join. Because a one size fits all mindset just assumes everybody will have to do its part to comply, not really mindful of everybody, not really mindful of the challenges faced. So a very basic analogy here is that if you assume all individuals going to a building perhaps would be able to do so no matter their circumstances, then there already is that wrong mindset. And that's why you have PWD facilities that are just really wrongly designed to begin with, because you don't really have the mindset of uh, who would be the individuals going to a building. So it's as simple as that. So similarly, we have to have a mindset in the policy office. Who will be or what types of businesses do we want to join? So if we want to join a diverse set of suppliers from MSMEs, down to micro, for instance, then we should be mindful of the difficulties or challenges or circumstances that they have to face in securing a BIR tax clearance, in securing a DTI or mayor's permit. Without that mindset, it would be very difficult for us to actually come up with the right set of requirements. So this is something that we're very, very mindful of and something that we want to be able to address in the IR. So help us po. Help us do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Boots and Edie Wang. Oh, geez, my. Okay. Of course, okay. Okay, it's working now, no? Okay, thank you. My next question is for Mr. Emsina. Of course, you shared earlier about corporate procurement, and you have a lot of quotable quotes as well. Among that is, we only have one word, and of course, one world. Whether it takes a village to raise the child. My question or our question is really on what were the challenges, if it's okay for you to share, in putting in place that ADB procurement policy, corporate procurement? What were the challenges in introducing that, having doing new ways of working or new ways of doing procurement?
Yeah. The most difficult thing is that, like, I was first of all very happy when 𝗟𝗲𝘃 Chris mentioned about the least cost selection. That was, as ADB, our biggest challenge. We are mostly working with governments. Government officials want certainty. They like certainty because they are accountable. Tomorrow they will report to their own government. So least cost selection is the easy way. That's the easy way. But my late grandfather used to tell me when I was a small kid, I am not rich enough to buy cheap things. So if you are going for cheap things, don't buy it at all. Or buy the good one. I am not rich enough to lose my money. So what Philippines is doing with the new Procurement Act, I think, is trying to incorporate these quality aspects. And how do you do that quality aspects? So you have a price factor. Price is always a factor. You cannot take it out, right? But you have a quality factor. So in that quality factor, you put your criteria. You have the difficulty there. So if you ask what is the challenge, the answer to your question is how you quantify that. To what will I give scores? To the proposal itself, to the product, how they explained it, are documents in full, this is missing, that is missing, or what sustainability requirements, gender. So as ADB, we encourage, for example, put environmental considerations, gender considerations, are MSMEs there, even if it is a $1 billion project. Small companies, are they there? Have you involved in your Philippines companies in your proposal? So give a score for that at least. So give the signal at least to the larger companies that, guys, you should be working with MSMEs because they are the real driving force, not the large conglomerates, in our view, at least. So the biggest challenge is how to put those scores, in my view. Yeah.
Thank you, Sir Mcna, for sharing those very insightful thoughts, and also, of course, sort of a recommendation as well to GPB TSO to consider as you come up with your new government procurement IRR rather. So yeah. And thank you so much for indulging me to ask those questions. And now I'd like to open the floor for questions from our participants. Please feel free to raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you. And of course, your thoughts, your opinions, your questions are very much invaluable to our discussion. And to those who would rather write it down, I believe our secretariat has been giving pieces of paper for you to write down your questions if you're uncomfortable or you're more comfortable that way.
May I ask a question of our friend from ADB?
Of course, Miss Boots.
I'm familiar with government procurement because I was also a public agency past. We do based on and quantifiable and non-qualitative and quantitative considerations, assuming you've met the hurdle of how core the qualitative aspects of a bill. How do you decide on the weight of the price versus the qualitative considerations? Because that's
The weight?
the weight.
Weight, yeah.
How do you
Yeah. So we've been doing, are there any consultants in the room? Who is working on consultancy? Philippines? Consultancy companies? Now only I can say half. So in consultancy, the standard ratio was 80% quality, 20% price. But when it comes to works, because consultancy, for example, it can be $1 million, $5 million, $20 million, $100,000, but works can get up to hundreds of millions of dollars. So governments cannot afford to put 80% on quality and 20% on price. So FIDIC, do you know FIDIC, the Federation of International Consulting Engineers? So they suggest 80% on quality. World Bank, they call it rated criteria. They recommend roughly like 40% on quality. ADB doesn't impose anything, but for example, I recommend in my contract 60% on quality, 40% on price. But this changes from country to country and project to project. The larger the package gets, the smaller the more important the price gets. If it's an $800 million package, then of course it will be different.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Butts, for that question, because I was also wondering this. Yes, Ma'am Laura, are there any questions from our participants? Okay, yes. Just a moment.
A very quick addition to that, and that's how the law, the new Government Procurement Act, was crafted. We actually provide flexibility. So the law allows procuring entities to identify the ratio. It would be 60-40, 70-30, or 80-20, depending on the project, because we don't want to dictate a fixed ratio. Because again, as pointed out earlier by a colleague from ADP, the higher the price, you can't you can't use 80-20 as pointed out. For consulting, this is ideal because you really want quality of policy advice rather than looking into the cost. But for infra, this is high, high price, very very huge amount of projects, so you need to be more careful in the ratio. And so but I also wanted to add that and this is the reason why we have all the other provision: inclusive public procurement, sustainable green life cycle costing. These are all meant to help us identify the quality. It's always easy to say, I want quality. But in all my years in the GPPB, whenever I ask what quality you want, it's often an adjective. I want strong. I want beautiful. But how strong is strong? How do you measure strong? And so these are all very subjective matters, but with the right kinds of tools, again, green criteria, life cycle costing, having inclusive mindset so that under social aspect of sustainability, you can include gender, you can include MSMEs as consideration from the project design from the start. It would be easier for us to appreciate the rated criteria. If we don't go through this process, I am most certain most of us will just say, I'll just stick with lowest. It's easiest, it's safest. I don't have to do a lot of work. I don't have to worry about my COA, my auditor. And we don't want that. That's why our our IRR consultation is very intentional, because we really want to be able to not capacitate you on the technical aspects of the law, but to really change mindset. I think that's the first step. And then have the right kind of capacity development in terms of understanding what matters in project design, and therefore consider it in your quality criteria setting. Thank you.
Is the COA in agreement with this approach?
It's very good that it's in the law.
That's our challenge too.
Yeah, it's very good that it's in the law, so it's really not up to COA to agree or not. But it is really quite a challenge for us to really properly reach out with them, because without the equivalent institutional support from COA, it would be very difficult to really effectively implement the law. Because right now I'm saying, if before they're just looking at costs, the next iteration of the auditors would be looking into why that quality? Why not this quality? So we don't want to have this being, our main bottleneck. So we are, of course, very cautiously engaging with the commission and audit on this because they already have some very good programs. Participatory auditing is one. So I'm sure we're both together in the right direction. We just need to be able to really somehow handhold each other towards the same goal. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I believe we have two questions from our participants.
Yes, Ms. Sigrid. We have looked into our Slido and we filtered into two questions. And the first question is for Ms. Boots. Allow me to read. In Ms. Boots' recommendation, could she provide a specific example of how to incorporate gender-responsive criteria in male-dominated infrastructure bidding?
I think you underestimate the women. Women can actually, in fact, do certain parts of construction work. I sit in the TESDA Women's Central Advisory Council, and among others, we train our women to do actual construction, maybe not the heavy construction work, but things like finishing, the detailed finishing work are better done by women. So I don't think that's an excuse not to consider uh, inclusion of women in the construction activity. So again, without being, shall we say, doing a sermon on this, it all stems from this unconscious bias that women are not capable of construction work. A few weeks ago, I was watching on TV a 60-year-old woman who was technically, what do you call this, mixing cement, going up the scaffoldings, etc. And she says, I grew up in a family of construction workers. I started in this industry at 16. I'm 60. Why should I stop? So again, no, we should not underestimate the capacity of women, is my response. That women can, in fact, do certain types of construction work if we only give them the opportunity.
If I may add very quickly, from the procurement sphere, I'll go very, very simple. Language. Starting with the bidding documents or terms of reference itself, sometimes you don't even realize it. The way we, for instance, define the responsibilities, sometimes we have a very masculine, male sense in mind, especially when it comes to construction. You can start with that. Whenever you come up with your terms of reference or bidding documents, you have to recognize that we have our own biases. So the biases may include looking at a male person to do the job. And so when we write the requirements, we have that in mind. If we are mindful that we have our biases, when we actually write the bidding documents, we would have women also in mind. It can be as simple as that. I always say it doesn't have to be straight preference. It can be as simple as being really, really aware that when we come up with bidding documents, we're already setting the conditions, the criteria, and so language matters. So I think that's something basic for all of us to consider.
Thank you, Ms. Boots and May. If I can put in my 2 cents on that question as well. When we talk about gender responsive procurement, it's not only about procuring from women, it's also procuring from gender responsive businesses. Do they have policies that, that address gender-based sexual harassment in the workplace? Do they have policies of equal opportunity for both women and men workers in an infrastructure related company? Compensation packages, do they consider the maternity leaves and maternity needs of women who are part of their employees, who are not necessarily, let's say, construction workers, or maybe just part of their company to begin with. So
If I may add also the presence of sexual harassment policies. It's important because women do face sexual harassment in these types of industries.
and do they procure as well from, let's say, women-owned businesses or gender-responsive businesses? So, yeah. Yes, thank you. For
Thank
the
you very
second
much, our
question.
dear panelists. For our last question, this is for all of our panelists. Allow me to read. One of the recommendation for public sectors is to incorporate gender responsive criteria in bidding process. What steps can ensure gender equity is considered? What steps can ensure gender equity is considered?
Uh, I think from the policy perspective, I'll start. It's good that Monique mentioned gender equity. At the end of the day, we need to understand we're not starting in a very balanced environment that we have to be mindful of. And therefore, policies should be crafted with that in mind. We need to be able to find ways by which we can take out barriers if there are, and I'm sure there are. The fact alone that earlier Ms. Boots mentioned, why aren't women participating? Why aren't MSMEs participating? It can be simply as we don't know the requirements, we don't understand the requirements, we don't have time for those requirements. It can also be as simple as in terms of the scale, it's just too big a project for us to join. So if you're packaging your projects that big, how can we join? So it can be as simple as that when it comes to policy consideration. And therefore, when we craft the policies, we have to be able to really break those barriers, really reach out to all suppliers, because this is not just about women. This is not just about MSMEs. It's about competition, effective competition, meaning we want to make sure that we have a very diverse supplier and market operators in government procurement. Because if we do, therefore, we have a very good, robust competition happening in public procurement. Because if there's none, then we only have the traditional types of suppliers. In a World Bank study, for instance, in 2019, if I'm not mistaken, on the average, it was shown that there are about 2.18 suppliers joining public procurement. What does it mean? On the average, there would be around only 2 or 3 suppliers joining. So there's somehow an effective duopoly, in terms of public procurement. We don't want that. So if you only have that very small number of suppliers joining, it means there's quite a lot more there. The government doesn't seem to be competing with the private sector to really have all of the suppliers participate. Why is that? Some of the issues raised are payment, very technical, very long process. And so we need to be able to address this in the policy sphere. And that's, I think, how we can ensure that there's diversity in our suppliers so that there's higher and more meaningful competition when it comes to public procurement. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of our panelists who would want to weigh in? Okay. No. Yes.
I think the message is let's provide a level playing field to all, provide them the opportunity to bid for public procurement opportunities. But it has to be intentional. Okay? Sometimes, whether in private or public sector, we say, oh, we have so many women, we have so many blah, blah, blah. But was it intentional to begin with? Or was it a result of the fact that you hired more women because they're smarter or they did better in school, etc., etc.? However, if you intentionally say that we will work towards having whatever percentage of procurement to be diverse, whether in gender, ethnicity, etc., etc., you must state that at the beginning so that everything else will follow. The policies and the procedures that you will adopt will enable that target MSMEs to be able to participate. So what I'm espousing really is intentional, deliberate policies in the design and not just a result of.
Thank you so much. I would now invite our panelists to give like a very brief closing message as we wrap up this panel discussion.
Thank you very much. I think this has been useful for all of you. I think we have been able to give you a little bit of insight at least from my point of view, how you can see yourself in the procurement cycle of ADB funded projects. Please do not think they are too big. They are too large for me. You are one of the most important elements there. And we are trying our best how to incorporate MSMEs in the value chain, in the supply chain. So if you are there, the larger conglomerates will have a better advantage. And the more agile you are, the more innovative you are, you will have a much better chance in succeeding in the procurement. And lastly, I would like to wish you all the best and success in your business.
From my perspective, I think I wanted to just end by saying that we do have a very good new Government Procurement Act, RA 12009. However, let me caution you, the law will not work by itself. It's the legal framework that would allow us to do a lot of things, but the work really starts with us. I want to echo what Ms. Boots mentioned. It has to be intentional. It can't be by happenstance. Often I'm asked, oh, how are we able to procure this furniture? It's by design. It was intentional. We included in our specs that it has to be from local. There's a local component. You just can't rely on the law doing the work for you or hoping that suppliers would read your mind. You really have to be intentional in designing your projects. So whether it is sustainability, local MSMEs, making sure you have the best quality, you have to have the right kind of mindset in crafting your bidding documents. You need to understand what quality means. Quality is not one size fits all. What works for Juan may not work for Pedro. So perhaps let's do away with the copy paste practice in bidding documents. You might even copy the name of the other agency. And it happens. Let me tell you, that's why we created the PBD Builder. Often failure happens because of those very, very minor mistakes. It really has to be something that we not only want to comply with, but we truly understand. And I think in all the government projects, there's that entry point to sustainability, to local MNC support, to gender responsiveness. It's really just a matter of us understanding what it means and reflecting them in our bidding documents. And we're here to be able to help you do that. And so I also want to thank everybody. You've been very, very good in joining us. And I know you're very interested with the technical sessions later on. So please do actively participate. And again, we have the focal group discussion this afternoon on inclusive public procurement. I hope you can join us. And thank you so much. And mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you very much. A round of applause once again.
No, I'm so apologies. We still have to panelists who would
Yeah, no worries. Pero yung closing, parang
Kaya
closing
pala eh.
remarks na kasi kay E.T. Weng eh. It's hard to follow that, no? Pero very, very excited, E.D. Weng and everyone else. These are truly very exciting times for procurement. I can't believe I just said that, no? That sentence sounds so like an oxymoron. But it is exciting times for public procurement. And I really look forward to all of the policies and issuances to be issued by the GPPB with all of its new members. As a chair of our Bids and Awards Committee in DTI, excited with how are we going to implement all of these new things. But with new things, we should be careful. And I would just like to share, I don't know, this is already in the head of our board, our new board, and E.D. Weng is, I don't know if we will have a facing for this. We're trying to do a lot of things at the same time. There's talks about technology, there's talks about open and transparency, there's talk about sustainability, and there's also talk about being gender. We're all trying to do it at the same time. My cautionary warning lang po as a back member and Chair, is maybe we could have a little bit of phasing, especially our theme for this week's procurement summit is empowering our MSMEs. This may be too a lot for them. We're very glad that you're providing all of these innovations to make it easier for them. Like I mentioned, ED Weng, that sometimes they get discouraged because the steps are so difficult and they get disqualified for the minorest things. I'm very happy that you mentioned that you're working with the other government agencies and your only problem now are the LGUs. If you issue a policy, ma'am, that we could relax on the mayor's permit, we will be more than happy to look the other way if the mayor's permit is a little bit late, because we do have problems with that, ma'am. January to February, we try to do our procurement, but a lot of the bidders don't have an updated mayor's permit. We can't delay it for March to April kasi sira na po yung schedule namin. So, hopefully you have some kind of phasing. Experiment first with national government before you go down to LGUs. Nothing against LGUs. But there.
Sir Chris, 30-second wrap up. Apologies because the time.
No worries. Thank you so much. And congratulations po.
Thank you, Ms.
30
Boots,
seconds only.
if possible.
Anyway, I just wanted to say that this topic has been one of my advocacies, and I'm happy to see that at least during my lifetime, something has happened. But I do have high expectations from all the stakeholders that we can make this work. And as I mentioned earlier, as my colleague from ATB said, it takes a village. So we just need to work together in harmony so that we can achieve the objectives of this exercise. So thank you for allowing me to be here today, and I look forward to your recommendations at the end of the summit. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our esteemed panelists for sharing their valuable insights, and to all participants for your engaging questions and contributions. It was an honor to be your moderator for today's panel discussion. And as we conclude this discussion, it's clear that fostering inclusivity and sustainability in public procurement is a shared commitment. As already been mentioned again and again, it takes a village to raise a child. And as such, I hope that the perspectives offered today will help shape our efforts moving forward. And this discussion really highlights the need for and the importance of continued engagement, interlinkaging, and the opportunity to have honest dialogue on policies and processes that can help facilitate and improve MSMEs' participation in public procurement, and to see the impacts of our collective efforts on local MSMEs and the broader community, and to see the change, the difference that it can make to the lives of women and communities, and for us to basically leave no one behind. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much. That's it. That's our resource speakers, our panel resource speakers. And at this point po, let us proceed to our photo opportunity. Special thank you as we close our morning session. A special thank you to our panelists for sharing their expertise and experiences that truly enriched our understanding of the challenges and opportunities in this field. So as we close, we would like to extend our heartfelt appreciation to our moderator, Ms. Sigrid Jan Sibug, for skillfully guiding today's discussion and ensuring that all voices were heard. Your expertise and leadership in advocating for women's environment and inclusive economic growth are invaluable to our mission. And of course, to our guests and participants, if you have any questions or concerns for the panelists that you didn't get to raise during our plenary, you can still share them through our official Slido page for this year's summit. All you have to do is to scan the QR code displayed in your screens and submit your questions. And so as we continue with the 2024 Procurement Summit, I encourage everyone to fully engage with the various activities we have prepared to enhance your experience. Take advantage of the Procurement Clinic, where you can receive legal consultations, address training-related concerns, and discuss procurement reports on issues with our GPPSO experts. Additionally, we have the PhilJEPS consultation desk. Here, MSMEs can seek guidance on how to register for the PhilJEPS system and learn about its benefits for assessing government procurement opportunities. And of course, please do take your time to visit our Sustaindahan and Innovation Showcase located in the building lobby and on the second floor of the GPPB-TSO building. This is a fantastic opportunity to explore the incredible products and innovations from our local MSMEs and support their efforts towards sustainable procurement. Tangkilikin ang produktong tatak Pinoy, tangkilikin ang sariling atin. And of course, do you already have the crossword puzzles distributed by our secretariat? Yes, for you to be able to win our surprises, all you have to do is to answer those. And for you to be able to answer those, you have to visit the Sustaindahan and Innovation Showcase in our lobby. And you will see there, meron po tayong drop box located again in our building lobby. If you're done answering the crossword puzzles, just drop it out there in our drop box, Billy Bayong drop box, again located in our building lobby. And you will be having a chance to win our exciting surprises, especially given to all of you during this year's Procurement Summit. And lastly, do not forget to join our breakout sessions starting later this afternoon at 1 p.m. These sessions will provide a more in-depth look at various topics related to inclusive and sustainable procurement. And so as we conclude this morning's activity, let us carry forward the insights gained today and strive to implement the ideas discussed. Let us connect, learn, and support our local MSMEs. Together, we can create a more inclusive and sustainable procurement. So that's it. Thank you. And we'll see you later this afternoon for our breakout sessions at 1 p.m. because together we will make things happen. Thank you, everyone.
Isang panibagong bukas ang ating hinahangad. Huwag mong sasayangin ang pagkakataong matapos na yung mga balay. Lahat ng aking pagsisikap ay inaalay ko sa iyo. Anong pagsubok ang aking harapin, mananatiling nakatayo. Ikaw ang bigla.